Pokémon is pretty well known for giving us features that last a single game and then immediately bite the dust the next generation. Unfortunately. But Pokémon has also been phasing out features and mechanics that used to be staples across the franchise. And I guarantee many of these you probably didn't even notice were gone or beginning to disappear. So good morning everybody, good morning, it's JPR, and these are the features that Pokémon has been phasing out. The first mechanic that was gradually phased out before being completely removed in Gen 9 is fishing. Not catfishing though, we still have plenty of that. Fishing used to be an integral part of the Pokemon experience, and one of the only ways to encounter a wild Pokemon without walking around in a cave or tall grass. Heck, you could even fish inside of certain statues in Gen 1, so make sure to pick up your free Nuzlocke encounter in Lorelei's room. Not that a level 10 Goldeen is likely to save your run, but hey, if you need a sacrifice, it's an option. Fishing would be expanded upon in the generations to come. Gen 2 would radically flesh out the encounter tables, Gen 3 would expand on the fishing minigame itself and add the mechanics where Sticky Hold and Suction Cups nearly guarantee an encounter, and apparently in Heart Gold and Soul Silver, the friendship of your walking Pokemon even influences how often you get a bite. It's pretty complex. But in Black and White, fishing experienced a rather concerning setback. Fishing was exclusive to the post-game in both pairs of Gen 5 games, and the Super Rod was the only obtainable rod. Rippling water encounters were added, which allowed for extremely rare encounters like Dragonite and Walrein, but it didn't quite make up for having to wait 20 plus hours just to get a rod. For a moment, it looked like fishing was saved in X and Y, when all three rods made a return during the main story, and they even added the chain fishing mechanic to make shiny Pokemon easier to find. But then Game Freak pulled the rug out from underneath us with Sun and Moon and said, haha, just kidding, now you only get to fish in very specific areas, and also you'll probably pull up items more often than Pokemon, and the Pokemon will usually be Magikarp because almost all the encounter tables are trash. Fishing would stay relatively the same in Sword and Shield, with each area only having a handful of designated fishing spots. And now in Gen 9, fishing has been completely removed. Now, a lot of things got removed in Scarlet and Violet because of the open world nature of these games, and I guess fishing kinda falls into this category now too, because you can plainly see Pokemon swimming in the ocean. Still, it would have been kinda cool to have certain rare Pokemon like Dondozo and Finizen only be catchable through fishing. Although fishing for dolphins might be illegal actually. So maybe not that one. More importantly, kids today will never know the torment of having to fight the fisherman who uses 6 Magikarps. I just noticed while making this video that the fisherman trainer class doesn't even exist in Paldea. What a darn shame. But speaking of types of encounters being phased out, rare battle types are also in a weird spot. Rare wild battles were introduced in Pokemon Black and White. In regular grass, they take the form of shaking grasses, which usually means, yay, Audino, you gain a level. Or in the darker grass, they take the form of double battle encounters. Although Shaking Grass was removed in X and Y, these games did introduce Horde battles, which, dang, I kinda miss this as a mindless shiny hunting activity. You could just spam Sweet Scent and wait. Sun and Moon then replaced these with SOS battles, where wild Pokemon could summon a teammate in battle, but sometimes they have no friends, and it just makes you feel bad for them. Sword and Shield didn't really have a new type of battle phenomenon though. They did have the brilliant Pokemon who were more likely to show up the more times you KO'd a Pokemon of the same species, but I wouldn't really consider that on the same level as the previous phenomena. Legends Arceus on the other hand did somewhat bring this back with multi-battles against wild Pokemon. Certain species like Zubat will team up with each other if multiple happen to aggro you at the same time you start a battle. You can also stun multiple wild Pokemon with Sticky Globs and then send out your Pokemon to battle multiple at once. It's pretty convenient for grinding actually. And in Scarlet and Violet, it seems like this is, well, kinda gone, but not really. We do have Overworld Terra Pokemon, which I suppose is a new type of battle, but it feels a lot more limited than the battle types introduced in the past, like Hordes and SOS, which could happen at any time. By the way, did you know that there's a Wild Terra Psychic Rockruff in these games that always has own tempo so it can evolve into the Dusk form? I sure didn't on my first playthrough, that would have been nice to know. With Pokemon graduating to a full open world, it also makes sense that items like Repel and Escape Rope have also been phased out. With random encounters being a thing of the past, it makes sense why Game Freak removed Repels in Gen 9. Except these absolutely could have still been reworked and used in an open world context. Just make the Pokemon that would normally be aggressive run away from you, like Paldeantaros and Veluza. Because let's be real, nobody likes these guys interrupting a shiny hunt. Oddly enough, the Gen 9 games actually contain unused item descriptions and even artwork of the Max Repel, so maybe it was intended to be put in at some point but was scrapped shortly before launch. But Game Freak leaves all kinds of useless junk in their coding, so who really knows? Escape Rope is kinda weird though, because it was actually made into a key item in Sword and Shield. You know, the games that have absolutely zero long dungeons to ever justify using an escape rope. But in Gen 9, you can just call a flying taxi from anywhere on the map, even deep inside of caves. so escape ropes no longer had any reason to exist. Although, if I'm being honest, I kinda miss when Pokemon had logical restrictions, like not being able to fly out of caves or certain forests. It almost feels like the world is a little too forgiving now, or maybe I'm just having an old man yells at cloud moment. Let me know what you think down below. But while you're down there, if you're enjoying this video, then I would really appreciate if you left a like and subscribe so you never miss a new video. Another item that went through various revisions before its inevitable removal was the Dowsing Machine / item finder. At first, it would just chime whenever you face in the direction of a hidden item. Starting in Gen 4 though, Papa Nintendo said, look, you guys actually gotta make features for the touchscreen, we paid a lot of money for this. So it was reworked for a few games before Gen 5 just said, screw it, it's automatic now. In Sun and Moon, the Dowsing Machine was effectively replaced by the Ride Stoutland, which was rather annoying because you couldn't run and search for items at the same time. Who thought that was a good idea? I hope your Severance package was good. But starting in Gen 8, the Dowsing Machine was retired for good, as hidden items aren't really, well, hidden anymore. They're just little sparkles that show up on the ground in random spots now, and this carries into Scarlet and Violet. Y'all, I am so close to having another old man yells at cloud moment. I know this is another consequence of having an open world game, but like, I just want to use my brain a tiny bit and not just mindlessly walk around and pick things up. Am I insane for this take? Speaking of consequences of an open world, at least one positive is that these random roadblocks have disappeared. Okay, admittedly, some of them were fun, like the Snorlaxes in Kanto, because those were tied to the plot, and you had to go through a series of events to unlock the ability to remove them. But after Snorlax, the roadblocks just got progressively more stupid, and they just evolved into random people blocking your path for no good reason. In Black 2 and White 2, they even acknowledged this by blocking off White Forest and Black City with a group of dudes who will literally say, today we're dancing for no reason. Someday we'll disappear for no reason. Admittedly, it's a funny line of text, but it's still kind of annoying at the end of the day. I think Sun and Moon's roadblocks are the most offensive to me because these islands are designed in a way to where they could easily be open and explorable, but they introduce the Captain's Barriers, where entire areas are just closed off until you beat a trial. What do the local residents have to say about this? If Granny wants to take her morning walk on Route 2, does she need a guy to come unlock the gates? Or does she just say, oh well, I'll wait until the protagonist finishes his battle? Some areas, like Haina Desert, that are completely optional and unrelated to the plot, even get roped off until you beat the next trial, which is just beyond irrational if you ask me. So you know what? Good one, Scarlet and Violet, I'll concede that point. Another mechanic you probably don't think about that's been around since day one, but no longer, are ledges. Ledges used to be a creative way to create puzzles on routes the first time you pass through them, but when backtracking the opposite way, they made for decent shortcuts. However, in an open world where you have an overpowered legendary who can take you literally anywhere, ledges aren't really needed for world design anymore. Ledges are similar to HMs in a way. These two bit the dust as Pokemon games went to more open 3D world design, and left the old grid-based system behind in Gen 7. I think when this happened, everyone universally applauded. Especially after Gens 3 and 4 required a ludicrous amount of HMs just to traverse most areas of the region, meaning you'd have to dedicate large portions of your move pools to rather useless attacks. Sometimes you'd even be restricted in how you wanted to build your team, and you knew that you'd always need an aquatic Pokemon who can surf, or a large one that can use strength and rock climb. But honestly, I feel like Pokemon kinda got it right in Gens 5 and 6 where HMs still existed, but were much less intrusive than in past titles. With HMs getting replaced with Ride Pokemon, and later just the Rotom Bike, I kinda feel less of a connection with my personal Pokemon. And again, it almost makes traversal too convenient. There aren't really any overworld puzzles to solve anymore. Strength puzzles were neat, dive was cool, and I know they weren't HM related, but dang man, sliding ice puzzles were kinda awesome. I know they only really work in a grid system, they were even kinda easy to cheese in X and Y where you could just walk diagonally in the Frost Cavern, but oh well. All Game Freak had to do to save HM's reputation was limit them to like 4 or 5 per game and make them all different types of decent base powers so you could actually use them in battle. Cut should be a steel type move, don't at me. And we don't need Waterfall to be an HM, just Surf will do. I just think they took the Scorched Earth option and took out HMs entirely because they heard fans complain about HMs. And with that removal, a lot of creative world and puzzle designs suffered, I think. I don't think people would have complained as much about HMs if the HMs were actually good. Controversial take, I know. Trainer rematches have slowly but surely been phased out as well. Gen 2 introduced the Pokegear and the phone feature to let you rebattle NPCs at random. Gen 3 and Gen 4 expanded this with the Versus Seeker, letting you cherry pick the NPCs that you wanted to bully for their life savings. And Game Freak even designed NPC teams around these features, as these trainers' Pokemon would get stronger and evolve as you rematch them. I liked this a lot. It made the game feel like a breathing world where everyone is actually trying to get stronger and you're not just the only trainer with ambition. Sometimes you could just make random Ace Trainer NPCs into your rival or training buddy, and that was kinda cool. But starting in Black and White, the ability to rematch trainers was largely removed. It kinda returned in Black 2 and White 2 with rematchable breeders, but honestly I feel like this was just a glitch in the trainer class that they covered up with dialogue saying it was intentional. But once again, with X and Y, it would be impossible to rematch any regular NPCs. And outside of the remakes of Hoenn and Sinnoh, it has remained impossible to rebattle your average Joes, as Alola, Galar, and Paldea all lack any sort of a rematch system. And lastly, berry growing has been steadily disappearing for many years as well. Berry growing was introduced in Gen 3 as a way to easily obtain berries of the same type over and over. Kinda like how growing things in real life works. Huh, how about that? This was due to berries' increased importance in this generation with the introduction of Pokeblocks and contests, features that have also been removed as time marches on. Heart Gold and Soul Silver expanded upon this with the berry pots, a convenient key item that allows you to grow berries on the go. In Gen 5, berry growing was removed from the core games, but moved to the Pokemon Dream World where they could be transferred to your games. Curse this temporary Webkins knockoff. Also, editor, good luck finding quality footage of this one, it may as well be lost media at this point. Gen 6 made berry growing return to the core games with the berry fields. While berry growing was once again stationary, it came with large innovations, like controlling pest outbreaks and wild bug-type Pokemon, and berry mutations, where common berries could sometimes turn to rarer types of berries. Berry growing was then moved to Poképelago in Sun and Moon, where the mechanics were incredibly stripped down from previous games. Much like how fishing was. My, how things come full circle. And in Gen 8 they said, screw it, you shake these ugly trees that don't blend in with their environments at all. Sometimes a wild Pokemon will drop down and scurry off with some of the berries, but the tree always shakes more violently right before that happens, so it's incredibly avoidable and not as risky as you might think. And in Gen 9, berries no longer grow anywhere in the world. They can only be obtained as hidden items, the auction at Porto Marinata, or as rewards from the Terra raid battles. Once again I ask, where is the depth? You gave us this amazing open world only to fill with absolutely nothing but wild Pokemon and Gimmighoul coins. Maybe let's fix this in Gen 10. Wow, this video really made it sound like I just woke up in the morning and wanted to hate on Scarlet and Violet, and that was definitely not my intention when I came up with this video. Or maybe it was, but it was just suppressed. But anyway, be sure to leave a like on this video if you enjoyed, subscribe for more videos just like this one, and I'll see you guys next time.